Welcome to Raising Kids in the Digital Age. Jen is going to lead us today. Just a little bit of background on Jen. She's been in education for 20 years. She taught for 10 and then has been in tech integration and finally landed as a media specialist that she really feels is her niche in life. She's been in 6 different districts or 5 different districts and now is at Hopkins North Junior High. This is her, I just learned this is her 16th year doing this workshop. She's been doing it since the beginning. So she comes to us with a lot of experience, not only about best prep, but a lot of knowledge about technology. So Jen, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. It was funny when I first started, our presentations were, this is how you do a PowerPoint. Like literally, this is how you make a PowerPoint slide. We actually had a smart board lent to us that we wheeled into the U of M, and I got to sit during breakouts that weren't in the room to make sure nobody came to steal it. Were people going to steal the smart board? But it was 12 years ago and I had morning sickness and I hadn't told anybody I was pregnant, so I was fine with sitting by the smart board so nobody would steal it. Raising kids in a digital age have changed a lot since in my years as a tech integrationist and as an educator. And that is the heart of the presentation that I'm doing. And Rebecca's going to help me by watching the chat. You guys are if you want to jump in. Rebecca's also the mom of 2 12-year-olds, so she has that perspective too as we go through. As she said, the bar should go away. I'm Jen Leggett, Library Media Specialist at Hopkins North. I've been a little bit of everything. I've seen lots of districts. I've seen a lot of growth of one-to-ones. I'm currently at a one-to-one iPad school where every kid has a device. What that means, how they've not become invisible and how they have become invisible in education has been a real adventure. I'm going to talk about how digital devices are connecting our students to the world. I'm going to go quickly through the good stuff because that's what this whole workshop's about. And I'm going to go into some of the digital distractions and what we can do as parents and teachers. So I'm going to talk about the positives, the distractions, talk a little bit about that screen time, about cyber literacy resources, and some tools we can use to help with tech. These are my whys. At the top is Emma. She is 12 and going into 7th grade, which is the youngest I've ever taught. So she could be one of my students. And my Matthias is 10 and he is going into 5th grade. They both are fluent in Spanish. They have gone to Spanish immersion school. This past year, we moved Emma to our neighborhood school because they've been open enrolled. So she's been 1 year out of regular old English school. She'll never forgive me for moving her out of her Spanish immersion school, but those are my whys and why I'm doing this presentation. A disclaimer though, I am not a tech expert. I'm not a researcher. I'm a parent of 2 tech users, an avid techie myself. And I do support 900 teens, teachers, and parents with one-to-one iPads. So this is my thoughts and experiences from the journey. I just saw enrollment expectations for next year. I believe we're gonna have 1,000 kids in my building. Wow. If we show up in my building. So that's about 100 more than last year. So we'll see how that actually turns out once we figure out school and so on. Hey Bonnie, I'm recording. Am I recording now? Just double checking since you're in here. Okay. You made me remember to triple check. Some of the positives of technology, which we know, and like I said, this whole workshop is about technology allows kids to showcase their learning in so many ways. We hear their student voice. We see their creations. It connects classrooms to the world. Kids can talk to experts all over the place. In our companies, we saw that in your business partners. School is a concept, not a place. And I keep seeing people try to remind people that when they talk about schools closing. Our schools didn't close in the spring, most of them. The building closed, but the heart of the school itself stayed open because of technology. The teachers were still working, many of them more hours during the school closings. School is a concept and technology was able to keep it going. And how can this COVID stuff change school for the future? Can it change the paradigm of learning? Can we break out of block schedules? Can we break out of grade levels? Our high school was going to offer 2 online classes next year. And in conversations, now they're talking about offering tons. If they do it for distance learning, can't they do it for kids who are leaving for sports, or kids, like, just opening up the possibilities with technology? And then personally, they're providing connections during the COVID-19 lockdown. My kids continued dance over Zoom. They did Taekwondo over Zoom. My daughter, she's a mini me. She ran a Girl Scout meeting with Zoom video with a Nearpod lesson where she was able to move the slides along, ask her friends questions, push the answers out. She had a question to engage them for each of the areas, and they completed their badge while sitting there with her. And that's the possibilities that technology can provide. Nobody else jumped up to do their badges, so she could do another one. She can do it. I don't need to be involved. There's video chats and play dates. Our 70-year-old grandparents and 80-year-old grandparents are doing video chats, which we wouldn't have done without. And the work world has continued for many adults. Many jobs that never may have let people work from home now are doing it. Those are the positives. There's 3 days of workshop that we'll talk about those. But now we get to talk about the other sides. And not all the distractions are bad. But that is where people start talking to me and the concerns come up. There's, and Carrie Kirpin, I have 2 articles from her in here. I've read a few by her. She said, our kids are using technology to move forward. The tricky part is figuring out how to keep them safe and how to keep ourselves from freaking out. And I think that's the big piece, is how to sometimes let go and yet keep control. And I had somebody on Facebook last night, like, messaging me, do you have any resources for this parent? They're scared about YouTube. And I did. I actually sent this presentation because I was lazy. But finding a way to trust our kids and yet have some control. And this article talks about participation in your kids, sitting down with them, seeing what they're doing, having open communication. I ask my kids what they're watching. When I hear voices in the background, I ask my son what show he's watching. Being willing to talk to my daughter about, are you interested in social media yet? Are you, because your friends are on Instagram? She keeps saying no. My daughter thinks TikTok is stupid. She's 12. She thinks TikTok is stupid, and I love it. And I'll talk about TikTok in a bit. Just having those conversations, though, because if she really, really pushed Instagram right now, we would have a conversation. And I let her join Facebook Messenger and let my son join the kids, Facebook Messenger kids. I wouldn't have done that had there been no pandemic. But they're able to connect with cousins and friends. And then education about what's okay and what's not. I have been as blatant with them. They were playing like the Snake-O, one of the IO games. Mm-hmm. And in it, I was reading information, and it said people can change the front picture of the snake head. And one of the warnings is people are changing them to naughty pictures. So I said, if you ever see a naughty picture, and I was straight up, the kids were 8 and 10, said, if you ever see a penis as a picture, put down the phone and bring it to me. Like, you might see naughty pictures. And they're like, okay. And you just got to be straight up with them, because 99.9% of this game is going to be fine. But there's always that chance that somebody would put a naughty picture. They couldn't talk to my kids, but they could put a picture. And then monitoring, and I'm going to talk about monitoring later. And then the tweens, there is a hard age, because when they're 8, 9, 10, you can say, no, you're not old enough. And 13 and up, you know, they could join Facebook because of terms of service. It's that 10, 11, 12, where they're growing up so fast. They're so creative. They want to connect, but it's difficult time for parents to balance that kids' need for autonomy and their kid-like immaturity. So finding that balance. My daughter isn't supposed to have her device in her room, but she wants to listen to audiobooks and clean, but because she's putting away her clothes, she wants her door shut. And so, wait a second, you can't have your device in your room with your door shut, but yes, I know you're putting away your unmentionables. So how can we do this and make it work with our family? Kids are forming their own identities. They change their hairstyles and what they like to do based on their friends. They're in such crazy times. And this article, for those of you who are with me, would be a good one for you to read through. And maybe I'm doing the scare tactic right away. There's a guy who actually went through TikTok and reverse engineered it and tried to figure out all the dangers of it. And he found it the one app he would never let on his devices. And it explains like all the different ways it was trying to get his information. And he said, you're putting yourself at risk when you have TikTok. So, well, we gave into our kids and let them get, it's gonna escape me. It's one of the character building games, not Minecraft. It'll come to me later. We let them get it this year because their security got better and we could turn off chat with other people, and we gave in. Whereas a year and a half ago, the security wasn't good enough. My kids won't ever get TikTok. So looking at the balance and the security, just making sure that you understand that, and being able to tell my kids this is why. And then we look at, and it's not just behind kids' tech obsessions, the science behind why these apps are so addicting to the kids and to us. There's a digital pull. There is a chemical pull behind the apps like Snapchat and Instagram and Netflix that are made to keep you hooked. And those are some of the pieces that we want to help disconnect our kids from. Before I go into these, are there any questions so far? Because I'm going to go into why kids and adults get addicted to apps, but I'm going to take a sip of water. Any questions so far or comments? You're good? I'm on track? Okay. So I'm going to read this quote because I like it. Like the high octane sugar in a pint of Ben & Jerry's and that irresistible chemical spice in flaming hot Cheetos, the ingredients in social media, video games, apps, and other digital products are carefully engineered to keep you coming back for more. While researchers are still trying to discover whether kids and parents can be addicted to technology, some computer scientists are revealing their secrets for keeping us hooked. And the tricks that they talk about are autoplay, notification, things like snap streaks in Snapchat, randomness, and in-app purchases. The autoplay in Netflix is a very dangerous phenomenon. You lose track of time when one video rolls into the other. When you're doing a task, maybe something like scrapbooking or something creative with it in the background, you may not notice how much time you're losing. But if you're just sitting there and watching, it's amazing to be able to sit and watch an entire series in one sitting. Right now I'm watching the original Star Trek, and the family's watching Next Generation. The kids are like, last night we made them wait overnight to watch between a series finale and the next series. They're like, we can wait 24 hours. We know you waited 4 months. Like, oh, shush. Well, it's okay and for us to watch, and that's kind of our culture now, to watch whole series. If you can turn off autoplay, that makes you stop and pause and go, wait a second, I just watched 3 episodes. Maybe it's time for me to get up and do something else. Especially if you're doing something mindless like playing Candy Crush at the same time. You could lose 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. And Netflix is getting that from you, from their service. YouTube is worse because they're throwing in commercials in between. So they're making money off of you with their autoplay. You've got your notifications, those little pings and prods that get you to open. It's an internal trigger. Like, I haven't checked my phone in 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I was talking to Rebecca before we came in. Did I miss something important? Did I miss something that the presenters are supposed to know? During the school year, I have all of my social media notifications turned off on my phone. Because if I see one, I want to pick it up and look. And honestly, I'm getting to the point I want to go on my phone and turn off all notifications except for email and phone. Because if I see that little red sign, I need to go check it. And we noticed that with our kids too. Our kids figured out last year, if they took a Google photo and shared it with their friends and commented on the Google photo, it became a chat room. I love kids. And it caused a notification when they added a new comment. And it wasn't necessarily any different than them chatting in a Google Doc, except a Google Doc didn't have that notification. The kids craved that notification to know when Fatima sent them an email or a message, or when Molly replied back. They wanted that notification. It's that rush of somebody just tried to talk to me. There's an article here, and he's a little extreme, but I found the article because I wanted a picture of a lot of notifications. Its phone notifications are ruling our lives. So if you want to read the article, I'll show you guys my list of links. But that just made me cringe, and you can dig into that article. But he says the fraction of a second to pause and look at notifications is enough to derail your mental capacity to hold a conversation. If you're speaking, it might be enough to stop you from continuing. If you're listening, it's enough to make you lose interest. And then you just want to pick up your phone again. The distraction is real. It can take you minutes, 25 minutes to get back into your thinking. So when those kids are answering those messages on those Google Photos, how much time is it taking for them to get back to focus in class? And they're like, well, it's silent. It's not distracting the teacher. Like, would you get up in front of the teacher and have a conversation to your friend in front of the class? They're like, no. Like, then you don't do it here either. And they're like, well, we'll find something else if you block Google Photos. I'm like, yeah, you will. And then I'll find that and block that too. It's the one thing that's better about having them at home. I don't have to see the distractions. Randomness, this is one of the other factors. Companies that give us rewards, we are excited to find out who liked us or who friended us or who updated our status. If we knew we found out on Facebook who liked our post every day at 3, then we wouldn't have to check it at 9 and at 1 and 10:30. But when those things show up randomly and when they show up at the top of our feed in a different order, thank you very much, I hate that. that makes us go check it more often. And then we have things like snap streaks where, and I am not on Snapchat, but the kids send things to each other for 3 days straight. Sometimes they give each other their passwords so that they can keep the snap streak going. Kids have had breakdowns because their phones get taken away and they're going to lose their snap streak. And then the upkeep games, those are ones that my kids aren't allowed to play, like Clash of Clans, because if you don't keep your country going, because we take away your phone for a day and a half, then maybe your country gets weaker, and if you can't keep it up. We have 2 junior highs in Hopkins, and they now have similar phone rules. But at one point, one of the schools had no phone beginning to the day to the end of the day, and the other one let you have phones between classes. They didn't monitor in the halls. The one that let you have them in the halls, the kids would start Fortnite battles in the 4-minute passing time. And then the teachers would try to start class, and if the kids put away their phone, they would lose their Fortnite battle. So every single start of the class, because of that upkeep, you had to win the battle or you died. The kids were being naughty to start the class because of Fortnite. So those types of streaks, you have to do it or you die, addicting parts of the games. And then we have the in-app purchases, those free games that aren't free. Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, they promise that they're free, but then you want that extra ball or that cool outfit. And they are sneaky, and that's how they keep you buying. Fortnite is one of those big ones. I actually had the Fortnite conversation last night because my son felt out of touch with a group of boys he was at a camp with last night. He's like, they're all talking Fortnite. I don't want to play Fortnite. Like, you're 10 and you don't want to? Keep it up. These guys will talk, if you want to go look, it talks about why they did to make Fortnite so popular. This article from Money talks about how people spend. They discovered that people are spending in 1 year, and this is 2017 to 18, so I don't have updated money. People spent $84 upgrading their Fortnite characters in their Fortnite worlds. So they're just putting money in to make them stronger, to make them better, and that's how this free app is making so much money. I want a free app that makes that much money. So all of these things seem overwhelming, and I don't know anything about TikTok. I don't know anything about Fortnite. I'll keep coming back to this website throughout the conversation. Common Sense Media is an amazing resource. If you need one place to send your parents for where to get information, they have ultimate guides to the different apps. So this is an ultimate guide to TikTok. It's ultimate guide to Minecraft. Roblox, that's what I was remembering before. 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, Roblox, you could not shut off outside people talking to your player. So I refused to let my kids have a Roblox account. And within the last year and a half, they've blocked that down so we could set up children's accounts that until they turn 13, nobody outside can connect with them. So my kids are very happily playing Roblox now. But when I hear some of the things they're playing, they're taking worlds from outside that other people have created, and I need to pay better attention to what they're playing. Even if outside people can't talk to them, they're playing things created by outside people. But parent guides, this is where I go, and my husband will go to similar places, and we're both techies to find resources. But there is hope. This was in the Star Tribune right during this workshop 2 years ago, and I still love it. gamers are pulling the plug. Like the geeky electronic gamers are going back to board games, and board games are making a comeback. At least they were until, we can't go out and sit around a table 3 feet away from people. But how can we push our kids to strategy games and board games? And the board game and gaming stores are popular. They're popping up different places. How can we push our kids to some of those games too that are face to face, and practicing those communication skills, those talking skills, those strategy skills away from a screen? There are games, some of those strategy games are actually online. So it's not just like Fortnite, let's go have a battle. There are Yahtzees online, Monopoly, some of those games that are those strategy type games are available. And Common Sense Media has a whole section again on ways to socialize at a distance. So that's a site you could go to and look at how to host a play date with your kids, maybe when they're 8, when they're 10, when they're 12. And this would be something healthy you could push out. It's a screen, but it's different. And I'll talk about this later. It's different than passively watching Netflix that continues. This would be a chance for your kids to interact with other kids, maybe kids they wouldn't see normally, and be able to use those communication skills rather than their staring at the screen skills. If you want to dig deeper, there's information here about free games and how they make the billions of dollars. Esports, and I didn't want to get into that because my brain didn't have capacity for it, but how kids are actually making money off of, and there's college sports now that are in gaming. So when kids come to you and say, well, I'm going to become a famous football player, they used to say that, now it's, I'm going to become a famous gamer. That's a legit thing kids might try to say to you. Is your kid addicted to gaming? And then the fourth one there, the title's wrong on the, I fail on my library media citing skills. The article is actually, is gaming a disorder? Is gaming addiction bad? So thinking about the distraction and the games and the addiction piece with that, any comments or questions? No?
I have one quick story to share, if you don't mind.
Please.
My daughter is 7, and I allowed her to use, like you, I ended up with Facebook Messenger or Kids Messenger for her, which I wouldn't have done otherwise because of the pandemic. And she was only connected to friends and family and all of that. And she started to do like a vlog where she would record herself and just send it to everybody. And it was cute and fine. And she sent almost everything to me, so I saw pretty much everything. And one day we had been swimming in the pool, and she went downstairs, and she hadn't used Messenger Kids in weeks, but she had the tablet and she opened it up and she did a vlog, but she was still wearing her swimsuit that was like tied, and it came untied and had fallen down, and in the video she had exposed herself and sent it to everybody on her friends list. And it terrified me because I just thought, okay, great, now that's going to be out forever. And it was very hard to get rid of it. And Kids Messenger, you cannot delete anything you sent ever, unless you report it as inappropriate, and then they can remove it. And even on regular Facebook Messenger, you can only delete something you have sent within 10 minutes of you sending it, and then it's there forever. So I am now terrified of Facebook Messenger and Kids Messenger. I took it off the tablet. It was not for us. Like, it was too hard to get rid of stuff. And so anyway, that's my, and we had a long conversation with her, and I would rather that have that conversation with her now than, you know, 10 years from now when it would be even a bigger problem. But yeah, so anyway, my little story that I've learned about. But
and me giving it to my daughter is very different than me giving it to my son. My daughter, her brain just works differently. And yes, she's 2 years older, but if I would have looked at her at 10, her brain would have been more ready for it than my son. And he's just not developmentally as with it when it comes to social interactions. And like the day he got it or the next day, one of his friends said something on it that was completely like, I hate you, or you're stupid, or something over the line. And I just sat there going, I've already questioned whether or not you should be friends with this kid, but it's like, you have 5 friends. So, and then he came back and said, sorry, I was angry about something else and I shouldn't have said that to you. But I have his messenger on my phone. So I get every single one of his messages. So I saw it before he did. So I was able to filter that before he saw it. But where's that other parent when your kid is saying something horrible over Messenger? Because I had told the mom the day before, like, we need to watch these boys. They're 10 or 9 at the time. And she's like, yeah, I get it. They're boys. And yeah, it's crazy when they're young. And I know it's bad when they're older too. But yeah. Anything else?
When I got rid of the messenger, I explained to her it wasn't that we didn't trust her, it's that we didn't like the way that the system was set up for keeping her safe.
Yep.
It wasn't about her and what she did, because she just made a mistake. She was a kid and she just didn't think about it. She didn't realize she's 7. And so I made sure she knew it wasn't a punishment to her necessarily. She does need to think about what she's doing, but that we got rid of the messenger because of that we didn't think it was safe enough for her. But
yep.
I think even as they get older, kids are tempted. And I have a 15 and a 17-year-old. And so we still make them, we're probably the crazy parents, but we make them turn their phones in at night in our room. I just feel like there is so much out there. It doesn't matter really how old you are, that we have to be careful with our kids. And good kids can make poor choices.
Yep.
And I just feel like it's really a tough one when we're in, when it is COVID, and if you're a strict parent that doesn't let your kid go out and do things, so you want them to socialize because you know that's important, but how to do it safely, I feel like, is a very difficult task right now. It's difficult under normal circumstances, and I feel like it has become more difficult, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. And then the whole balance, and that's the whole next section, is how much time we give them on screen, especially with school being something that they are doing digitally. And I was talking a bit before about different types of screen time. We've got that passive screen time, and that was something they brought up in the 80s and 90s. They're like, you can't have more than 2 hours of screen time because screen time is bad. That was a lot of the watching TV, just sitting and staring. Though I don't know if necessarily, this article had reading and listening to music as passive. I could see that being in the background. If my phone looked and saw how many minutes I'm on every day, it's going to count 8 hours of audio, because I run an audiobook every night as I sleep. So does that count as my screen time during the day? Maybe, because my brain's listening to the audiobook. There's the interactive consumption, like playing games and browsing the internet. And then there's that communication, which is the video chatting and social media. And then there's that next step, which is that content creation, that using devices to make digital art or music. And my 12-year-old will push me and say, Mom, can I have my device if I am drawing? Can I have my device if I am, and she just wants her device. My son the other day is like, can I use my school iPad? There is a lesson on, and this is completely true, on electric currents that I had at school. It's in Schoology. Can I go find it and do something on electric currents? I'm like, you are such a geek, number one. And number two, yes, for a little while, because I can't time control his school device. So he knew by getting on his school device, I could lose track of time and he could have unlimited time. But paying attention to how your kids act during and after watching TV, playing those video games, hanging out online. We took away the remote for our TV in our family room because my son would do one of the tasks we asked him to do, and then he'd go grab that remote because the time on his phone, and I'll talk about that later, the time on his phone had run out, so he'd go grab the remote and turn it on that TV. And then he kept going back to that and back to that. And we're like, nope, your time is done. We're going to hold the remote and we'll be the ones who let you watch on that TV. There's a lot of high quality, age appropriate material. If my kids ask to watch National Geographic, I'll have a different answer than if they're watching YouTube. Like something created by a professional with content versus something created by, but I'm watching the science guy on YouTube. Yeah, it's some 20-year-old kid in a suit blowing things up. That's not the science guy. Like, so finding that balance. Most families go through heavy and light media use. My kids are out today. If I don't know how much time dad's giving them on their phone, but both of us are working today. So they might have more media use today. Daddy's in charge of their media time today. And then Common Sense Media has a whole section on screen time during the coronavirus and trying to find that balance and the emotional piece with that. Right now, limits on screen time look a lot different than they once did. I know it's a lot different than it was in February. Acknowledging to you and yourself that with a lot of school and socializing happening online, increased screen time is going to happen. I have a coworker whose 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old daughter had never seen her on a device. Like during the day, they didn't have devices out. They didn't have their phone out. She didn't have her work computer out. During naps and at bedtime was the only time she would work on work stuff. But then she had to work from home. So that looked very different. And their goal of never having technology out had to change, their cultural change at home. And I don't know how she did that. I never saw her daughter on her lap. So hopefully they were able to continue some of their beliefs around screen time and their kiddo. Start with compassion and understanding. Sometimes we do need that break. Giving additional screen time as a bonus. When my kids finish their task in a button, I can add more screen time for them. Giving them alternatives. We have a board with 12 things that when the kids have something to do, it has do your puzzle or play with Legos, because as much as we have an entire toy room, which I'm taking over if we do distance learning in the fall. So when we find out tomorrow, if we have any sort of distance learning in the fall, their toy room goes away and it's becoming my office. But they have a whole toy room. They don't think about the alternatives. They just want screens because they're kids. Having a schedule and then modeling healthy screen use, which I'm going to talk about in a second. What about you? Looking at the battery on your phone, seeing how much time you spend on different items. When I first took this screenshot to update it was last Monday. It was one of the days when my Facebook was blowing up about back to school. One of those back to school Facebook groups was just posting every 20 minutes. And I had, because I'd have Facebook up just sitting and I wouldn't close my phone. Like it would just be sitting there. I had like 6 hours of Facebook up on my phone. Apple screen time, see, there's only 44 minutes in that screenshot. That's reasonable. It was Thursday, last Thursday. You can see the big bump on my time there. Screen time lets you get an idea of where you are and using your time. The thing about screen time with controlling my time is it asks for a passcode and I just type in the passcode to get more time when I run out. So unless I give my husband my phone and have him set a passcode, screen time doesn't do much to control my time. Moment is an app that I had used in the past. I put it back on my phone a couple weeks ago and it shows you how much time you're on your device for free. Shows you how many times you pick up. You can set it so that like I want an hour without screen time, and it's supposed to make an annoying noise and give you a pop-up message. It wasn't working quite right when I tried that the other day. There are, it's a little bit later, that or I didn't put the link in, I'll have to look when I get later. There are companies that will, for $8 a month, help you control your screen time. There's a company out there that if you buy their app and you set yourself on no screen time, and anytime you try to log in during the no screen time, they get $1. So the app's free, but if you say I want an hour without screen time and then you pick up your phone and go in, they get $1. So how much money do you think they get off of that? So there's some screen time links. And then with sleep, when it's near bedtime, screens, they say suppress your melatonin. They keep your brain alert. The phone I have by my bed is an old iPhone, and it has music and clock. Because if I have access to Safari, if I have access to email, I'll check it. Those notifications will pop up. And then they wake you up because you think, oh, I'm awake, I'm gonna just check Facebook because I'm rolling over, and now you're in that pit of reading comments and so on. Screenagers, which is a video, they brought it into Hopkins, a little bit of an alarmist video if you see it, but they have a lot of great resources, and Sleep and Screens is one of them. Any comments about sleep, screens, screen time? Questions? Can you hear the cat in the background or no? Yes, it's very upset at me. I am sending a message to my daughter to get the cat. Oh, the oldest child is a 16-year-old cat. When we get into cyber literacy now, oh, you thought it was a baby? No, 10 and 12, and the 16-year-old very annoying cat. Cyberbullying is very real, and as we get moving into, oh, here comes the girl up the stairs, I hear. Cyberbullying includes sending, the posting, the sharing negative information. That message my son got, that was something like, I hate you, or you're stupid. It was a really bad post, I remember that. Some cyberbullying crosses into that criminal behavior, that unlawful thing. I've got to say, when you start reading the comments on most Facebook and news posts right now, there's a lot of cyberbullying happening between adults. People don't know how to disagree politely with each other. Some tips for kids is making sure kids know it's not their fault that they're getting cyberbullying. Oftentimes they take it to heart that it's my fault, I said something. Making sure they don't respond or retaliate, because that will just get it to come back. Saving the evidence. It's possible to screenshot everything or take a picture of it, even in Snapchat. You can tell the person to stop, make it nice and simple, but reach out to help. Like, it is okay to ask for help. Use tech tools, protect your accounts. You can block people. Blocking is an amazing option if you feel comfortable. I looked the other day, I have 2 random people blocked. I think they're from community groups that were just being obnoxious for no reason, and I ended up blocking them. And then if someone you know is being bullied, take action. If you see it, tell kids, don't let it just happen. For parents, know you're lucky if a kid asks for help, that they're not living through this silently. Respond thoughtfully, not fast. Think about it, just don't go and attack the kid back. look at different perspectives. What the victims say helps. The goal is to restore self-respect for the kid and maybe for the bully. And we need to talk to kids about resilience, getting through it, and that building resilience for themselves. There's in my resources some bullying links on that. And maybe I should just make this my Facebook profile for a while, reminding people to think, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And yes, if kids are being cyberbullying, bullied, or are a bully themselves, you might see it come out as behavior issues. So your kid's behavior might change, if that's what you're thinking. You might see them sulk in their room more. They may get quiet when things are happening. If you see a sudden change in behavior, if you see them spend a lot more time on their device or a lot less time on their device, they may not come to you, but those are some of those triggers that you might see that that may give you a sign that something is going on. For grown-ups, these are things to think about too. The manners, at least, and thinking about not necessarily bullying, but the cyber literacy skills. Grown-ups are so bad about blindly forwarding things. I put this image in here 2 years ago. Does the Facebook algorithm show only 26 friends? It's back through again. It's back on Facebook. So don't just blindly forward things. Be skeptical. Check the dates. Right after the horrible events in Minneapolis this year, somebody posted that the Minneapolis Police Union was offering warrior training, like 3-4 hours after everything was going on in Minneapolis. And I opened up their article and said, this is from 2018. Yes, they did in 2018. Like, if you spread this right now, it's the wrong date. So triangulating that word, your facts, and using tools like Snopes. The one thing that I find grown-ups spread a lot is missing kids posts. They see a missing kids post and they share it. And they don't check, when is it from? Sometimes they're 5 years old, 3 years old, kid's been found. If you share all of those when their kid is actually missing, it's when you cry wolf so many times and you get a kid who's actually missing, people are not as likely to look at the real missing kid. Cybersecurity, an entire session could be devoted to, for example, Facebook security. I had a friend once when we were talking about logging in through Facebook. I have one thing that logs in through Facebook, and that's Pinterest. We're having a conversation about it. My friend had over 100 apps that she logged in through Facebook with. So there were 100 apps that had her information. So knowing your settings and clicking on them often, this was the directions I put together for her and then shared. I haven't updated it in a year or two, but knowing to turn off platform or going through and seeing who's blocked, who you've blocked, seeing what other people can see and what posts are public. Sitting down and giving yourself an hour to go through your social media settings often, every couple months, because they like to change them. When I jumped in the other day, I found I could delete all my, and I do this every couple months, delete all my Facebook search history, because there's a browser in there, and my ad history. So every couple months I'll go through and I'll delete all of my history, and then I'll leave one thing like purses. And so I stopped getting ads for the things I'm interested in, and I'll only have purses for like a month. And it's very refreshing not to see all the other ads. I think when it comes, we need to finish up, don't I? When it comes to tools, looking at common sense media, parent control systems, there's parent control software you can put on your Wi-Fi or on device level controls. At home, we use Hour Pact, so I can give my kids exactly 30 minutes. I can take away their apps. I can give them access to, you can have this app because you're working on a project. This is the one paid app that we pay for as a family every month. But there's a bunch listed on this website here. This mom who's run a social media agency says when it comes to things, she talks about it. She always joins first. She monitors her phone. Somebody talked about doing that with her kids. And then they require offline time. Create a family contract. You can see our family contract there and some ideas of some. And the resource list, can I click on it? Is all the articles mentioned here are on this Google Doc. So if there's an article that was interesting for you, you can open it up and dig into it deeper here. Questions or comments? I know I saw people drop off because it's going to be our other session in about 3 minutes. You're very welcome. And thank you, Rebecca, for being here.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Fatima and Molly, for being here with us. I hope you took something away, maybe not only to help in your own life, but then to bring into your school and classrooms in the fall.
Great. You'll take a quick break and then head off to your candy group session again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.